You are now listening to Nerd Hour. Amateur Hour. Please, allow me to show you something. Let's get to work.
Hello.
Oh, wait. For the movie we're talking about.
No.
I'm gonna do it throughout the whole review.
You're gonna get slapped throughout the whole review.
He said he would hit me. Cops! Cops! Can you imagine
Hello,
if I
everyone.
went into a police station like that? Cops, help me! Oh, help me, cops!
I think they're just gonna give you a random look.
Probably. Welcome to Film Nerds Hour.
May think you're drunk.
Probably.
But yes, welcome to the Film Nerds of Hour.
Well, that's not the title. I'm Nathaniel Shoemaker.
And I'm Noah Sweeto.
Mm-hmm.
And today we're going to be giving you guys a review, as the title says, of Hereditary, which is the first film by Ari Alster.
Mm-hmm.
Or Alster. I don't know if it's...
I think Alster?
Is it Alster or is it Alster?
I'm sure the comments will let us know.
That's true.
They'll be very discreet about it as well.
But
You freaking morons!
Ari, he's a very talented man, which, he also, these movies also do come from A24, which, as you
Only
guys know.
makes good movies, except for two.
Yeah, really.
Seriously.
And, honestly, the biggest thing, too, is that, if you guys remember earlier this month, from The Lodge, Robert Eggers, he's the one who did The Witch and The Lighthouse, and he's also done his first and second film with them, and Ari has also done a second film with them, which we will be covering, giving our thoughts on it, because that actually turned out to be fantastic. Midsummer.
I thought it was Sommer.
Midsummer. I think it's just a matter of how you pronounce it.
I guess. I mean, I don't want to be all neckbeard nerd fedora about it, but I think that is how it is pronounced. But in any case,
I'm gonna be honest. I love Midsummer more than I did
me
Hereditary.
Too.
That's not to discredit Hereditary.
Hereditary's still great.
Hereditary is amazing. It's just Midsummer took something and it was a visual masterpiece.
Right. I agree.
So that was pretty cool. A lot of what people were saying though when this did come out, one of the best comments was it was this year's Exorcist, and I completely agree with that. I have not seen The Exorcist personally, but I've seen bits, pieces, and clips, and from what I understand and what I've seen, it does look like a lot like it shares that theme.
Due to my religious upbringing, I have strayed away from that film because that concept horrifies me to no end. But I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Seeing some of those clips even gave me a little bit of the heebie-jeebies, not gonna lie.
The heebies and the jeebies? Both? Wow.
A little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, Hereditary, I don't know why it says Will Poulter was in there. It's a little weird.
Yeah, Will Poulter was in Midsommar. Was he?
No, he wasn't. Hereditary, they mixed up the cast because they put all the cast...
the cast? Because it was made by the same guy.
Yeah, so Midsommar, they have all the cast from Midsommar at the very bottom.
Oh, for God's sake.
Nice job, Google. But, yeah, where you guys can watch this right now, I mean, I don't think it's just free for anybody unless you have a Showtime Anywhere subscription. Otherwise, for premium subscription, or as to Showtime as well, regular Showtime.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's premium subscription for Hulu, YouTube TV, Sling TV, Fubo TV, or Fobo TV, Amazon Prime Video, or you can just rent it, which, you know, I'd suggest. Vudu's got it for $2.99. I go with that just because it's the cheapest. But again, that it all depends on how you want to support the movie, because you can also get on YouTube and Google Play Movies for $3.99. I never want to discredit by saying something is not worth it. I just know that some people don't want to spend. They want to be as little as they can without highway robbery of the movie. So.
Yeah, we don't know their monetary position in life.
No, and that's why I always like to give people the cheapest options, because sometimes if you save a little money, you might go spend a little money on the next film by the person. That's
exactly,
really
you know?
good, so.
We just want to support film creators, I think, is our...
Yes, so this man is very, very talented. Also, same as Robert Eggers, and I am excited to see what his next movie is going to be because they are up and coming. Now, from what I understand, is that he's done only 1 or 2 other films.
Were they flaps?
But they were shorts.
Oh, okay, they were short films. Okay.
Munchausen? I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce it. I know I pronounced it before, but it's a little...
Munchausen, I think,
Munchausen.
maybe.
It looks familiar, and I've heard it said.
It kind of looks... It looks a bit Midsummer, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, and then he was also part of a...
Noah's already getting bored. Put it in the timer. Put it on your logbook.
It looks like he also helped produce a sci-fi comedy in 2003 called Save the Green Planet, which also looks like it is from... It looks like it's a Korean film.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a South Korean film. And then there was one other one, but I don't know. I think this might be a short. It is a short called TDF Really Works. So yeah, these are pretty much his two feature films. His silent short looks like it has the same Munchausen. It looks like it also has like the same vibe of Midsummer.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah.
Kind of The Visit too, but.
Oh yeah, with the little needle point.
Yeah, and then he did another short called The Strange Thing About the Johnsons.
I will keep that in mind. That sounds very...
And it has a bunch of African Americans in it, so it looks like it focuses on that. Okay. So I'm assuming that that's probably a horror short or a thriller. The film stars Billy Mayo, Brandon Greenhouse, and Angela Bullock as members of a suburban family in which the son is involved in an abusive, incestuous relationship with his father.
Okay.
So it does look like an interesting film. And the way he pulls these things off, as bad as it sounds, he does all of these things in a way that is...
Tasteful?
Tasteful. I'd say it's more tasteful, addressing that subject.
Yeah. Which, that's good. I mean, that's not an easy subject to address.
No, but I feel like it is something that needs to be said. I worked on another really good short, and we actually filmed in a friend's mansion.
Ooh, that sounds nice.
So they had just moved in from Russia, I believe. So I won't say anything just for the sake of...
Keeping people not
private,
kidnapped,
yes.
Right, yes, of course.
But... I will say that it was a very fun...
a fun shoot?
It was a very fun shoot. It was fun to see and do. And it also dealt, I think, a bit with abusive relationships.
Okay.
So I'm kind of excited to see how that turned out. Because I feel like it is one of those things that sometimes can be way better expressed in shorts or films than anything else. So.
Okay.
I feel like movies can capture it, but the thing about feature films and why I think some of these have to be fleshed out a certain way, like Hereditary is because there's a thing of dealing with grief and loss. But the thing about it is sometimes they're better expressed in a short film because you don't have to write in extra things to it.
Right.
And that is something that is very great about shorts. Shorts don't have to be that long. They could be as long or as short as you want them to be. Obviously, I think by the time you hit a half hour, you pretty much have made a little episode.
Yeah.
And I think that's about what you call it. The most I consider a short film is about 45 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, because once you hit hour, then you're a feature film.
You are a feature film, and I say when you hit 50, you've already kind of hit a feature film, because that's kind of like a TV episode type.
Yeah, it's a pilot. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really do consider short films to be kind of a great way. I mean, not only is it a great way to stretch your legs as an up-and-coming filmmaker or just somebody who wants to dip their toes into it and see what it's like and share a concept with the world, but it's also a very great way to sometimes address or make a better concept because it limits you to how much you can do.
Right.
which is, something that I really, really respect about indie films and why we love them so much. It's very restrictive. There's no Hollywood budget. There is no studio really interference. It's a very creative environment into which you can make some great films. I mean, wasn't Alita Battle Angel almost kind of non-studio interference too?
I think for the most part,
I think
that sounds right to me. I will say, I do agree with you on restrictiveness kind of helping with creative process, because this is going to get very nerdy out there, but, when I play Magic the Gathering a lot, and when I make decks, I find it, if I stick to a certain theme, I can make the deck a lot quicker and a lot tighter, as opposed to if somebody handed me a box of 1,000 cards and was like, make whatever you want. I'd be like, you know what I mean? Like,
right. And it feels too like when you're using a budget, you don't want to use too little,
right,
but also not use too much. But it's also kind of like, well, they barely used the budget they were given, so what's the point of that?
Exactly.
Exactly. So it's like, oh, well, and that's the thing too, like, you always want somebody to tell you that you're over budget just for the mere fact of, because it gives you the perspective of if you're what you're doing, is it necessary or is it just something you want to have in there?
Right. As you have taught me, it is much better, even though it happens a lot to the point where it seems like a cliche, it is much better to be under budget or budget neutral if you're making something.
Yeah, because it's kind of like the idea of when you want to go shopping and you're like, God, I really want to get something. If you had just a bunch of money, or like even, and I mean, it happens, it's more realistic than you think. If you just have a plastic card,
yeah,
and no sense of really holding on to that money,
right, it
disappears like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of the same thing, like, oh, we do have the money to do it, so why not just do it in there?
Why not just do it, yeah.
And even if we don't put it in there, we just have it to have it. And it's like, yeah, that's nice, but at the same time, it's also something else that you have to think about, well, where am I going to fit it? Because the whole time you're going to be like, well, I shot it, and I really wanted it, but now I don't know where to put it.
Right. It seemed like at least set-wise, this film, Hereditary, that seemed like it was a little restrictive, because, like, there's not a lot of sets in this movie.
No, and I like that. It didn't really need to revolve. It made everything that took place outside of the house have more weight to it.
Exactly, because, like, we have the party that we see at some point. We have the funeral home, burial sites. But beyond that, it's mostly just the high school and the house. And
right. I
think that makes it easier for an audience to follow, and that just makes it easier for I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
I think it's easy for an audience to follow, and it gives people a lot less to focus on.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Because that is a big thing too, where it's like there's a lot to focus on when there's so many locations, and you kind of lose the significance. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, like with George Lopez. Oh, yeah. And it's because I watch it and I love that show. That is a show that helped me so much when I was going through some of the roughest times.
Yes, it's
during my childhood.
It is comfort food to this man.
And it is something that, I will always be eternally grateful for George Lopez for making. Mm-hmm. Even though it wasn't directly intended for me, but I thank the cast and everybody who gave me that sense of, well, I didn't understand the adult jokes and everything and humor in it. It really gave me that outlet to be very happy.
Well, like, I feel like that show, for sure, to an extent, is kind of for, like, everybody in a way. Because, like, yes, it does have a lot of, like, Spanish heritage stuff in it. But it also has a lot of, like, just... It's
awareness.
But it's, like, it's about family, Like, we all have an annoying brother or, like, sister or something, and we all have, like, parents who, the majority of us at least, have parents that are kind of like, have had worrisome moments that maybe they didn't tell us about, of like, hey, we may not be able to make a payment, like, but we're gonna figure it out, like,
that's not your ability to worry about. It's
exactly
your responsibility.
That's
yes, it is, but you also need to remember to count your blessings, because while we can't make it, just remember
we're
did do
we're
it for
gonna
you.
try, and we're here. We're together. That's
And
what matters. Yeah.
be grateful for the fact that we did do it because we're doing it for you.
Exactly.
But yeah, a lot of the set pieces that are used in just any sitcom, but I mean, something that I definitely noticed with George Lopez is that, you know, there's only really 2 sets.
It's the house and the factory.
Yeah. Well, and Thirsties from time to time.
From time to time, but more often it's the house and the factory.
Yeah, Powers Aviation and whatnot. So it's... And you know, that I like with sitcoms, because, A, sitcoms don't have a lot of money.
No.
But also... It doesn't need to be. We're not doing a rom-com. It doesn't need to go 50 different places.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I like. Because movies, you're only working with over an hour. So, I mean, to have a bunch of locations to really flesh out your characters and get flashy, you'd expect. Because a movie that sits in one place too long could get boring. Hence why Saw did so well, because they mastered that so well. James Wan and... who's the guy who played Adam? I can never remember his name, but he was in Insidious, and he had a role in that too. Look him up, but James Wan and now it's coming up with Spiral every time I look that up. Ugh.
Wait, it's okay, buddy.
No, I just
recover.
If I look up Saw, the first thing I don't want to see now is Spiral.
I know, buddy. I know.
As much as I want to see it, and it looks so good. James Wan and Lee.
Schreiber?
Lee Winnell?
Lee Winnell. Yeah, that's Lee Winnell. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he played Adam. He's a handsome man.
He's a handsome...
Wait.
I'm waiting.
Okay, never mind. Now, Corbett just kind of sounds like a guy's name. I was like, is he gay? Because that would have been also cool. No, it's his wife. I was going to be like, oh, another gay actor that I didn't know was gay. That's also awesome.
Yep.
But dude's a handsome man.
He's a handsome boy. Yeah.
And he works with James Wan very tightly, so they basically are, because I think they were film students together too, so he's kind of played a role in everything with that.
That's cool.
But I do like the way that this was utilized in the film with just having a small set, and how they laid out the house. Each scene that we got throughout the house made you feel more and more familiar, but also more and more foreign. Yeah. In a sense, after seeing the outside, because you see the outside and the inside, which, you know, sometimes isn't always a matter of... It's not always a matter of seeing the outside of the house and it being like, okay, well, that's clearly not the house that they're at.
Like, it's a weird cliche thing, and it kind of bugs me, but it's like, the fact that, like, there is one house in television that is used for so many different people's houses. Like, the mansion that the Queens have in Arrow that they own for those first few seasons.
Oh, jeez.
That is the same mansion the Luthers own in Smallville. And I get it's the CW, and you have a lot of stock aerial shots of this house, but I'm like... Can they live somewhere else? Like, I've already watched that show. I know that house.
It becomes a matter of, like, I've seen it once, do something different.
Exactly. Like, and again, I know it's a weird thing to say, but nothing against that house. But I'm like, you know, yeah.
No, you want to see something different because when you associate...
When I associate, I see that house, I associate it with the 10 seasons I watched Smallville with. I'm not going to be like, oh, it's the Queen's Mansion. It's
different, like the cabin that was used in Endgame that was only used in one other movie.
Exactly.
Except for, like, exterior shots, which is
Wait,
easier
what movie
to
was that?
You have to look it up because I can't remember off the top of my head.
All right, I'll look up on my own.
But I do know, I think it was, like, kind of like a early 2000s movie that had a lot of relevance. It was one of those really emotional drama ones that people were always like, it's super good.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Fair enough.
But yeah, they utilized the set pieces really well, and the way they kind of did, Creepshow did this too, and I'm sure it's been done before.
Yeah.
But they also had, so the mother in there, which we'll dive into the cast real quick too, so we can kind of get some name drops into there, because they had this was a stellar cast.
Name drop. Yeah.
The casting was perfect for this.
It was.
But let's see, we had Alex Wolff as Peter Graham.
Alex Wolff is great. Yes.
We had Millie Shapiro as Charlie Graham.
Great.
Tony...
Is it Graham or Graham?
Wait, what?
Is it Graham? You keep saying it Graham. I'm thinking it might be just Graham.
It could be.
Whatever.
Tony Collette was also in there, and I believe she was in something else that I saw. She was in Knives Out as the mother in there as well.
Yeah, she's the weird one. She's the quirky.
Yeah, she was also in Sixth Sense and Stowaway and Triple X Return of Xander Cage. So she was also, I believe, the mom in Krampus, which I have a deep love for that movie. Yeah, Sarah Engel.
That movie gets a lot more hate than it deserves. Can we just state that for the record?
Yes, which to be honest, guys, I'm not trying to flex anything here, we go. But
every time
the critics on Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 67. Like my Coach Steve reference there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm just kind of lonely all the time. Is that a good Coach Steve? Is that fairly decent, Coach Steve?
I think we're right up there as close as we can get without Nick Kroll one-upping us.
Yeah, okay. Yes, let's keep that clear. Without him one-upping us. I don't think Nick Kroll would sue us for an imitation. He seems too
Imitations are public domain, I'm sorry.
Right, he seems too cool.
But it would be funny and also very, very scary if all of a sudden you heard Nick Kroll right behind us just staring at us.
Well, knowing him, he wouldn't even talk like himself. He'd be like, "Oh, it's a ladybug."
I would assume he probably would have done Douche the Villain.
Yeah.
Hormone monster dudes.
I'm not a good mitten. I'm a bad mitten.
For those of you who want to see the gross but hilarious animated show of puberty, go watch Big Mouth.
Big Mouth.
Watch the trailer first because you will be in for some...
Yes, to address the people who keep trying to push for the fact that show is written by pedophiles. It's not. You're stupid.
No, it's written by people who went through puberty,
which we all have. That is one of the few things we all have in common as human beings.
Most of us.
Is that we all will or have gone through puberty.
Yes. For those of you who haven't, because there are some people who...
It's going to be fun.
Well, I know there are some people who physically can't do puberty, and it's like, oh. You know that?
No.
Yeah, there are some people who...
I knew there was a movie that J.K. Simmons was in, but...
No, some people physically can't go through puberty, and they just kind of stunt, and they idle.
Okay. I learn something new every day, I guess.
That's something. It's both interesting and also very sad.
Frightening? Yeah, it is, yeah.
So,
hearts out to any of our fans.
Hey, do you know how much they can sing now?
Yeah, it's fair.
Better than all of us, so there's a lot that can come out of it.
Yeah.
And they won't have to worry about shaving, so.
Good for them. But to go through the cast...
Yeah, we have Alex Wolff as Peter, Millie Shapiro as Charlie, Tony as Annie, Gabriel Bryan as Steve Graham, Ann Dowd as Joan,
yes.
And, we don't have to really go into the rest of it.
Ann Dowd is great, because my mom, she watches Handmaid's Tale. I don't know if you know.
May I also say, though, real quick?
Yeah.
I'm going to cut you off, but I did want to say,
No, it's fine. It happens every episode.
Well, I did want to say, Osnar Grant and Gabriel Monroe Eckerson, maybe? Okay. They were credited as Stoner and Stoner 2.
Stoner and Stoner 2. I would be so lucky to have that credit in something.
Right. So, that was my little thing I wanted to point out.
A little spiel.
Because it was hilarious.
Yeah, it is fun. It's like cast.
Yeah, which was something else I liked. There was a lot of people, but not a lot of main focusing characters. So.
Yeah, you were just following the family. Do we want to get into the plot here a bit?
Yeah, so...
Spoiler warning. Tell them where they can stream it if they would like to.
I did.
You did?
Yes.
Okay.
Mostly it's all premium for Hulu. The only place you can really see it for free are going to be Showtime, any of those apps.
Cool. Now I'm getting sleep. No, but yes, spoiler for the plot in 5, 4, 3, 2.
You've been warned.
Yeah. We open up with a very difficult scene that I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with. It's a funeral. We've all lost somebody, I'm sure. And if you haven't, it's going to happen.
Yeah, 'cause
spoiler alert.
I was one of those people who were like, I haven't had that happen, and it happened when I was 16.
Yeah. In the words of Daniel Sloss, everyone you love will die. The only way you can stop yourself from the heartache is dying first. That was a comedian who said it, not me. I am a comedian, but you know what I mean. But in any case, yes. So it's the grandmother who passed, correct?
Yes.
It's her mom, right?
Yes.
Yes.
It is her mom. It is, I'm trying to think offhand. It's,
Tanya Graham?
no, Tony Collette is the one who plays the mom, whose name is, Annie.
Annie, yes, thank you. Yeah, so her mom passed, and she gives a speech talking about her mom, how she was stubborn. That's probably where she gets it from. Just a lot of like, you can tell that they didn't have the best relationship, which, you know, we can all say that about someone in our family.
Yeah, it is definitely one of those things that we've all kind of had that one person that we want to get along with, but they also are kind of just not somebody you can get along with, or somebody that doesn't want to really get along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Like, some people are just stubborn and hard to reach. That's just the nature of human beings, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where are we?
So, I mean, yeah, we've all had people.
We've all had people we lost, and it's not, you know, we've all had people we lost, and we've all had people who we don't get along with in our families. So it's immediately relatable and engaging for the audience. You know?
Which I thought was a good place to start because it's different. It's not traditionally how you start a movie, which already kind of sets the tone for an indie film.
Really does.
Which there is something to be said, too, that this movie was released for a short amount of time in theaters as well. So we
Very
do
short.
have that.
Very short amount of time. But I will say I love how you get all the archetypes of grief within the family. You know, you get the mom who's very stressed out because she didn't feel connected to her, and now there's no more time. You get the dad who, credit to him, he's kind of taken all the brunt of everything and just trying to keep the family together. You get the granddaughter who she's kind of like, she's drawing during the funeral, and it's just kind of, she's kind of disconnecting. And then you got the son who's getting high, and you know.
Which you get the sense too, because there's something to be very much said about the children. Charlie and Peter are... You can tell Peter's a loner. Mm-hmm. And then he has his own group of friends. He's not just
He's a stoner. He's a stoner loner. Loner stoner.
Yeah, and I don't think that's necessarily his fault. I feel like he's kind of a socially awkward person. You kind of get that vibe early on.
And later when he has the panic attack, for sure.
Yeah, and Charlie, you kind of get the sense that she may have some sort of disability and maybe some Asperger's.
Well, I mean, we all have that. We've all been that socially awkward teenager. Like she kind of just stays in her tree house, and she draws and she makes little figures, you know. And
I think the thing that made me think she might have Asperger's is just because she seemed much more introverted.
Yeah,
and it just kind of her social tendencies that you gave her. It made her feel like she might have had some sort of disability. That's not to insult anybody or anything.
No, we are not. Let's make that very clear. We are not trying to insult anyone with disabilities.
It just seemed like something that maybe was possibly, or she could have just been socially awkward. Either way,
it was a good character.
I think even if that was the goal, it did it
without trying to push anything.
Yeah,
and I appreciated that.
It portrayed the disability very well.
Yeah,
instead of making it kind of like a... Which I know, if you guys listen to our last year talk, we had Eric on our show.
Oh, and we talked about music. That. Yeah, which I never saw that movie, but I don't know if I will now.
Yeah, which was a very heinous representation of people with autism that basically made fun of them.
Yeah, which is
not okay.
Okay at all in any way, shape, or form.
So anybody with any disability, it's not cool, my dude.
No. Yes, if you have, just so you know, listening, if you've ever laughed at someone with disabilities, congratulations, you're a pile of shit. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it at all here.
I'm sure one of these days you guys will hear my on our nerd talk too, on our little spiels and stuff of our general discussions. So I went through some of that, and a lot of people, and watched some of them do some pretty and say some pretty heinous things to people with disabilities. So it is something that I do love to see in movies, and I do love to see it represented very well.
Yeah. And when it's not, it's just insulting.
Yeah, and it's disgusting. So
yeah. So let's not do that, Hollywood. Thank you.
Very much. But you do get a sense though that they are outcasts and they're very introverted.
Yeah.
But you also, and maybe it is just me, but it really does feel as though maybe the kids they've already seen tragedy.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that I noticed with their introvertedness, and I kind of didn't know how to go about that or what to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like, it seems like Peter and Charlie are disconnected, but it also seems like Steve is just really, really trying to hang in there.
Yeah.
And Annie,
she's making dioramas,
Well, it doesn't seem like she knows what to think, because...
Well, you get the sense she didn't really know her mom.
Yeah. And
especially with her saying that she had Alzheimer's and dementia towards the end, like very severely.
Yeah, and that's why she was living with them. So it was very... She really didn't know how to process that. I mean, no. And it is really hard, because I've had those family members where it's like, do you want to come to the funeral? And I've been like, do I want to, though? Because I never really...
connected with them or knew them.
I never knew them. So to me...
Is it okay,
It's kind of like... And I usually choose not to go just because I can't be in a room full of people and not grieve because I don't know the person.
Exactly.
So it feels almost, to me, it almost feels very disrespectful to be there.
Good on you. There were some people in my life who did not have that same courtesy. Yeah. I won't say names or anything, but when I was in high school, I think I was like 15, 16, something like that. Someone in my class died. I'm not going to say like circumstances or anything like that, but they died, and we were told as a school, if we would like to, we could skip the day that the funeral was and go to the funeral. And I think like at least over 50% of the people from my school who were there never met him in their lives. And they were just going to get the day out. One girl I knew had never met... in fact, she made fun of him before. And she was at the funeral just so she could not go to school that day. And I was like... I said to my friend who is just trying to grieve over his friend, and I'm there trying to comfort him, is it bad I want to strangle her? And he goes, no, I want to do the same thing. Like, it's fucked up. I'm like, yes, okay, good. I have validation. But it's like... Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, the one context where I would say it's probably okay to go to a funeral if you don't know someone is if you know the people going, and maybe you're there as their support system to comfort them and help them, with this person that they have lost. Under that context, I would say that's fine. But if you don't know them at all, and you don't feel like you need to be there for anyone else... It's
just disgusting.
Yeah,
it's rude.
Exactly.
It's so utterly rude. And
because it's like... It's also the next stage of life, in a way, you know what I mean? Like, when people start going, that's when it's like, oh, we're not kids anymore.
Honestly, you're using the person as an excuse when you show up at a funeral. And I mean...
It's disgusting, yeah.
Even if you're not going, you're just going to support other people, it's still just like you don't really need to be there because you never knew them.
Well, it's like, I'm saying in a context of, like, you were in a relationship with someone and they knew them.
Yeah, I mean, in that context. But for most parts, for me, like, I just don't go. And my family is like, well, somebody did, and you're welcome to come. And I'm just like, I didn't know them. I don't want to be there. And I also don't want to be the person sitting in the back of the room where everybody's like, well,
who is that?
Well, who is that? Why is he here? He's not even... It's like, I'm not getting paid to just do something funny or
You're getting paid when you go to funerals?
No, I said I'm not.
Oh, okay. I was going to say,
Yeah, I'm not getting paid to just sit back there and be weird, so it's kind of like, okay, I don't really want to be here, so don't bring me.
That's that's the thing, is because I didn't really know. I had a relative who passed, and I didn't really know them that much. Like, they had met me when I was a baby, and that was about it. So I was like, I mean, I'm sad because my mom's sad, but beyond that, I don't know how to feel right now.
You can't process something that you don't know, yeah.
Exactly, and
that's something that definitely, I think, Annie was trying, is what Annie felt, because it was like, such a bizarre shock to not know someone, but yet be such a part of them, because they're the person who gave birth to you.
Right. And
it's very, very weird. Like, I was adopted at birth, so it was very odd, really, seeing the relatives I'd already met again when I was a kid, but not really knowing them because I hadn't really seen them, and it was like weird. Yeah, because you're getting to know your roots, and when you do get to know those people, it really feels like you've known them all along, because you have that trait,
the family connection.
Yeah, which you no matter what, you're always going to be connected with your family in some way, shape, or form, regardless of if you knew them or not. You're more prone to be like a side of your family because it's a bloodline thing. Like, for mine, it's creativity.
Right.
And I feel like that's where Annie came from. She had her suspicions and felt
something was off.
Something was off, but I think she felt a certain connection with her mom for what she does. In a sense. Which you kind of understand that later in the film.
Right.
And it's in a very odd, twisted way, as it is a horror film.
Yeah, of course.
But one other thing that kind of points that out is because you learn after the funeral, too, kind of into the movie, that Charlie, the grandma has taken a very big liking and attention to Charlie. Specifically before her birth.
Yes, and that is very important.
And it's also very important. Very uncomforting for all you women, and I'd say even men out there, but definitely the women. It's kind of be like if you had a mom that never had any interest in you.
But when you had grandbabies, they were like, whoa.
Well, yeah, it's like you're pregnant. But you have to keep in mind, you already had one child.
Right.
And then they come and
that they also pushed for you to have as well, we find out.
Yeah, which is like, okay, I'm not as interested. Ooh, you're having a baby. It's a girl. Ooh, do tell more. I'm very interested. It's like,
what about the other kid's like, hello.
Yeah, it's like, Grandma, I still exist. Okay.
Just shut up. Go back and
go into the crawl space. Which I'm assuming is probably what ended up happening.
Yeah, sincerely, that's the vibe I'm getting.
Because it seems like poor Peter didn't really know his grandma either, so it seemed like when he was there, he kind of was just like, okay.
Hence the weed.
Old hag's dead. Great. Yeah. She didn't take an interest in me.
Exactly.
So, we do get some. Where do we kind of go after the funeral? Because we kind of learn that what the relationship is, and
I think
the first time that we kind of see the grandma outside.
Well, Annie goes through some old books and stuff like that, but
which is up in the attic.
Well, she
upstairs. Her upstairs room, kind of her workroom.
She looks through some stuff and is trying to figure out what to do, and we see Charlie. She's been sleeping in the tree house because that's where her little setup and stuff. Which, can we both agree, coolest tree house ever? Geez.
Yeah.
But we kind of cut to school where Peter's doing the classic thing. He's looking at a girl's butt, not paying attention in class, texting his friends about smoking, and whatever. Teacher kind of gives him a pat. Out. Well, he calls him out for not paying attention, but he kind of gives him. It seemed to me like he kind of gave him a pass because oh, your grandma died.
Yeah, so I guess he was kind of like, oh, well, okay, I can kind of see why you're distracted, but let's try to keep focused.
He wasn't the guy from he wasn't the teacher from Disturbia. He wasn't.
No, which was actually what I was trying to remember, because I was Was any of the teachers a dick? Nah, that was a different movie.
And he wasn't the teacher from Edge of 17. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
No.
That is one of my favorite lines, because this girl, the main girl, she loses someone. I won't say what happens. But she was like, oh, I'm sorry I didn't finish the assignment. And Woody Harrelson's her teacher. And he's great in that movie. But he's like, oh, what happened? She's like, well, I'm sorry. It's just so-and-so died. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And then he goes, how long ago did they die? And she goes, 4 years. And he goes, sorry. According to the school handbook, the grieving period is 2. So let's get that assignment to me, okay? Because it was very much a thing that she was using that as an excuse to not have done the assignment, and it wasn't like she was actually grieving, and he knew that instantly, and that's why I love that character, because he's like, don't try to bullshit me, you just didn't do the work. Okay.
It's just the way he rolls the sarcasm into it. It's like,
well, because it's Woody fucking Harrelson.
Well, yeah, so you would expect nothing less.
Exactly. We need to watch that movie too, because that is great. But, and the girl sitting in front of him kind of shoots him a glance.
Yeah, which...
Were those like...
It wasn't flirty. It was acknowledgement.
Yeah. Okay, it was acknowledgement. It wasn't flirty eyes. It wasn't disgust either. It was just you're looking at my butt.
Okay. You can, I acknowledge your existence here.
Yeah. You are real. Wow.
Right.
Exactly. But...
So, we kind of get the sense, too, that Peter's very, like... I'm not really into girls. I have... one person I have my eye on, but I'm also not really willing to talk to any girls.
I'm at the age where I still just kind of want to hang out with the bros and smoke the grass by the benches.
Which, I mean, also is like...
good on you if that's what you want to do. Whatever.
Yeah.
Everyone has their phases in high school. How old is he in this? Because I think Charlie's like 13, right?
Yeah, 12 or 13.
Okay. And
he's I believe, a sophomore or junior.
Okay.
Because he's in high school.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure that's his age range.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, what is it? We end up, like... it's not the party yet, is it? No. She tries to go to, she tries to go to a grief meeting.
Right.
The mom does. And that's when we also learn that, not only did she lose her mom, but did her dad die when she was very young, and her brother died? Right?
Her father committed suicide, and her brother, I think, got into an accident.
Okay.
But her father was an abusive alcoholic, if I remember.
Yes.
He just drank so much that it was like he might as well have been dead. And then eventually killed himself. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she's very blunt about that, and it's interesting because we get a slow... the cinematography is great. We get a slow zoom in while she's telling this story, and like the people next to her on either side of the chairs do kind of have like a bit of a reaction to it all, but then they slowly fade out and it's just her face.
Ari has a very particular...
he has some shots he wants to get.
Well, no, he's a very big fan of zoom-ins.
Zoom-ins are... yeah.
Emotional zoom-ins.
Mm-hmm. And that's not... it's not bad. I like zoom-ins.
No, but I specifically refer to it as emotional zoom-ins because it very much is.
Yeah, it's always the hard-hitting, right there moments.
That he does it
right in the chestal section. Yeah, because he's trying to draw the audience in and get them invested, and it works. It works. But then I don't think she goes to it again after that. At least not for a while. But then, oh yeah, the dad gets a call, and it's very important to remember because he says, but it's only been a week, and that's all that we hear from that call until much later.
Right.
Yes.
And it's very shady.
I like little details, and it makes a rewatch very pleasing. Like, that's something I've learned about this filmmaker. Watch his movies a second time. Not back to back, but just a second time at some point.
Yeah. And I really do appreciate just how much like how much effort and subtlety in the background and just stuff that's like literally on screen in front of you
Right.
is presented. It's great because you don't really notice it because of all the weirdness and unnaturalness that's going on.
Exactly. So,
very, very good on him for those subtle little details that you really don't notice most of the time until you actually look. And I have a deep appreciation for that because that's definitely like it.
Exactly.
Which we mentioned about the lodge as well.
Mm-hmm. But then she tries to get her daughter to go out of the house because Peter is going to a school barbecue thing. And she wants Charlie to go with her just to like... She's like, there'll be other people there. Just talk to other people, you know? Which is we've all been there. We've all had our moms try to get us to be social, usually. Or if we haven't had that, we've definitely had the opposite. You know the opposite, of course.
Yeah.
I'm going to go hang out at whoever's tonight. No, you're staying here tonight. Why? Because we want you here. Like, we've all had that.
Yeah, and
for
it's
sure.
Like, cool.
Okay. And then 9 times out of 10, you probably spent the rest of your night in your room. They just want your presence in the house.
Yeah, which didn't happen too often to me, but then again, I was really to myself.
Well, that's something my mom pointed out, is like, just so you know, when you do move out of the house, there will be times where on occasion, like once every 2 weeks or something, I will ask you to come over for the day and just hang out and watch TV. Because I'll just miss that, you know?
It's the presence of having your family. And
Well,
for mothers, it's also the nurturing of like,
exactly.
I
Like,
push somebody out into this world.
My mom would probably, even when I'm well into adult, she would love the idea of me just being in my room watching anime because she would miss that aspect. There have been so many times in my life where my mom will walk in, and I'm sure it's just to make sure I'm still alive, but she would walk into my room and just be like, it's hot in here, and open a window and leave. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah, that was the weirdest thing.
You had that too? Yeah.
Where parents would just come in and notice something and fix it, and it was like,
I didn't ask you to do that.
I didn't. What? Or the worst thing is when a parent would walk in and they'd have something nicer, like an action figure, and they'd be like, "Oh, let me pick that up for you." No, I have it there for a reason.
I have a diorama going on.
Well, that was the thing that I always liked with toys too. Like I had my Star Wars figures, and I was always playing battles, and there were specific dead stormtroopers that I wanted to be dead.
Yeah, exactly.
And then your parents would like pick them up and be like, "Oh, this one's laying down. Let me." No, he's dead. He's dead.
Finally.
I'm going to continue my campaign when I'm done.
Someone else in my life who did giant wars with all their action figures and kept going down the line, fleshing out the story and the plot. I thought I was the only weirdo who did that. Like,
no, that was the best part as a kid, is when you went out to McDonald's or something, and the first thing you did when you come back was like, okay, I remember where I am. Let's get back to the action. It's like a pause button.
Well, and I overdid it with everything, because I was like... Because all my action figures were just a slew of randomness. So it's like, okay, I'm going to use these Marvel figures and these Star Wars figures because I both got them with comics, so they're the same size. But I'm also going to have the giant, like, 6 inches taller Lord of the Ring figures, and I'll just be like, Legolas drank a growth serum.
I could never do that. For me, it was weird. I always had to keep mine separate.
No, I couldn't. I couldn't do it to my figures or myself.
I couldn't bring Spider-Man to beat up Luke Skywalker.
Why not?
Because it was weird.
Yeah.
I could shoot webs out of my body. What can you do? Manipulate stuff with telekinesis that's part of our universe.
Control time and space.
And I also have a laser sword. I'm what you call a space wizard.
Yes.
Basically.
Mm-hmm.
We have a wizard.
A space one. But
we don't. No, we don't have a space wizard. We have a wizard in our universe. It's Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like,
they have a sorcerer, and he's
supreme.
Yeah, exactly. He's my favorite kind of burrito. Horrible joke. I'm leaving this.
I was thinking of pizza, but
anyway. Okay. So yours wasn't much better.
No.
No.
But yeah, so
it's just So they go to the party. And it's established early on that Charlie, she has a nut allergy. An allergy to nuts.
And also really does not want to go to this party.
Yeah, let's make it very clear. She was borderline forced, like, to
Not
go
even borderline.
She was.
Like, she was.
It was
forced.
borderline gunpoint, is what I meant to say. But like,
Oh yeah, yeah. Annie's like,
well, and she was like,
"We'll
Peter, you won't drink, right? No, I wasn't gonna drink anyway. And then she's like, all right, now you definitely can't drink. And he's like, I wasn't going to. And there's a lot of animosity between them.
Which, I'm sorry.
Which we find out why later, but it's like, at first you're like, jeez.
Well, also, I was like, of course he wasn't going to drink. He's a stoner.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think he was ever planning on
Not
drinking.
many stoners are also...
Alcoholics.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta do one. Just not the other. I like how it sounds like I'm advocating. Anyways... But yeah, so they go to the party. He goes into the other room with the girl he finds attractive and starts smoking some weed that he brought. He was very smooth about it, I will say. So I got this weed. Are you in my class? Yeah. Smooth game, buddy. But then she brings him into a whole other room with a bunch of other people and they start smoking. And then Charlie's like, where are you going? I want to go with you. And he goes, no, like, because he's very clearly in that mode of like, what are you doing? I'm about to get some. But so he's like, oh, they're handing out cake to everyone. Just have some cake. So she has cake, but it has nuts in it, and she feels her throat closing up. So he is responsible, stops smoking weed, runs her to the car to take her to the hospital. Which, okay, here's the thing. As a parent, we discussed this while we were watching the film. As a parent, if you have a kid who has any kind of allergy that could cause a very life-threatening situation, such as and not limited to their throat closing up if they're in contact with said thing, why does she not have an EpiPen? She should have it with her at all times, because you never freaking know when peanut dust is going to be in the air. Like, seriously.
Yeah, that was something that I blame her mom for. Because
yeah!
For being so adamant out of the house. I mean, I get it, because it's like... But I also had kids that went to my school that... They couldn't help it.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't something that they constantly wanted to live in fear of, so they didn't always remember.
Exactly.
And I mean, it's something even like
you just
with your phone.
You forget, you don't think, like, I don't think about meds sometimes, and I don't, like, there are some days where I miss them. It doesn't happen a lot, but it's like, it's, it's life. It just happens.
Right.
But then, yes, so he's driving her in the car, telling her he's going to get her to a hospital, and she's, suffocating borderline, so she decides to stick her head out the window, and then he, in feign to not hit a deer, swerves, and her head gets hit by a post and flies off.
Yeah, in which he stops, which I want to really emphasize, too, that was a big-ass deer. That was like a buck.
Mm-hmm.
Like a
how did no one
fawn.
A, how did no one see that before? B, what was it still doing in the road? Like,
I'm gonna assume it was probably fresh.
Yeah.
But I also, due to the end of the movie, I also have my suspicions.
Right, I was thinking that too. But yeah, it's just like horrible coincidence for this. Like, what is the coincidence that the second she sticks her head out the window, that's what's happening? You know what I mean?
Yeah, which it was already foreshadowed just due to the symbols on the pole.
And the creepy people yelling at her when she was cutting the bird's head off. And
not even that. It's if you remember, there was a zoom onto that pole. And
it had a symbol on it.
It had a symbol on it. But we also really focused on that pole for about a 5-second shot. Which is something else that I really like.
Mm-hmm.
Ari has a very particular... Whenever he focuses on something, it is not just for the sake of adding a little bit more time. It's not unnecessary or kind of like a still moving freeze frame.
Right, it's always for a reason.
It's always for a reason, and even if you can't see it, there is something there.
Right, exactly. But so then we get like a lot of things happening. We get him in shock, so much so that her body's still in the back of the car, and he just lies down and goes to bed. We hear his mom find the body. We see her rotting head, which is that. Whoever did the special effects, applause, because I almost threw up. Like, it was so detailed and like still looked like the actress so dang much. I was like, bleh. But so then, and we also see the funeral where she's crying and just like collapsing on the floor. before the funeral, or after the funeral, she also asks her husband, "Just kill me, just let me die. I just want to die." And Peter's still just very much like shrugging everything off and just not knowing how to handle it because he doesn't know what to do. You know, he feels like it's his fault, but he also like how would he have known that there was gonna be a deer there? And it's like,
right. I mean, and too, I really wanted to say too, like, I know like everybody's question would be, why didn't he say anything?
it's because,
And he was in shock.
yeah,
He couldn't accept the fact that he not only lost one family member, but now he lost his sister.
and it's because of him.
It's because of him. He blames his mom, but he also blames himself because he's the one who insisted that she just wait, so she didn't feel too uncomfortable.
Well, and he was the one who insisted that she have the cake that had the frickin' peanuts in it, which is why they were in that situation in the first place.
Yeah,
all because he wanted to get some strange.
You know, I don't blame him because, you know, at the same time, she wasn't supposed to even go, but it wasn't his fault with the cake because he just wanted to give her a reason to calm down.
Yeah.
Enjoy some stuff. Have some sweets. Just make yourself calm. It's going to be okay.
Have a good time.
And I feel like he did what any other big brother would do who just wanted to step away for him a second. He wanted her to be... And I don't believe in leaving her alone, but I don't really think anybody was going to hurt her at the party.
No.
Because everybody was focused on there. It didn't seem like it was that kind of high school party where it was like... Yeah.
There was drinking, but it wasn't like...
There wasn't like a keg.
No,
it was more people were just dancing and stoned.
People were dancing. They were high. There was cake. I don't know many parties that also has beer and cake. You know what I mean?
Right. It's usually more about alcohol, or which people are going to be like, well, maybe. Well, no, that's the stereotype because it's true. I've been to a few parties.
And I haven't, so I can't speak on this.
Smoking and weed for stoners, which there was nothing more fun because I was a good child. I just would sit and watch people smoke the devil's lettuce, and I was like,
I'm sorry, people high are so funny. Their reactions and responses to things
less
so
I
funny.
could monitor people, so there
you want to make sure your friends
violence
were okay,
and that nobody would disappear. Because every time people would be like, "Hey, we should go upstairs," I was like, "Or not?
No.
What do you need?
Yeah, what's going on, buddy?"
One person can go up and get it.
Exactly. We all need that one friend who's sober and making sure everyone's still alive and not like...
Well, I also... parties just... Because I've had bad experiences at parties, so I'm always sober at parties, just because I'm like, there doesn't need to be another person who gets drugs in their drink.
Right, exactly.
Because I went from having lemonade to somebody spiking it with hallucinogenics, and it was not fun.
Whoever you are, if you're listening to the show, you're a dick. Yeah.
That's why I don't like unicorns anymore.
Unicorns?
Yeah. Every time they make jokes in Diplo, I'm like, unicorns are kind of borderline terrifying to me.
What happened when... You know what? I'm not going to ask. So yes, he's feeling guilty. We get a lot of... So we get Annie, she's trying to go back to the grief counseling again. And that's when we meet Joan, because she was like, I lost my son, and my grandson was in the car. They drove into a lake, and they both drowned. And then she was like, I lost my daughter. She just died. And they're bonding over... like
a morbid scenario, but...
Morbid scenario, but it's still like...
They're bonding over a horrible circumstance.
Over tragedy. Yeah, they're trying to let this moment of tragedy bring them together as two other human beings. And I like that.
Peace.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, one other note I wanted to say too is that Tony's acting for the scene.
Oh, yeah.
When she was Charlie was absolutely devastatingly amazing.
Yeah, she killed it. She killed it so well.
It is exactly how a parent would react to somebody who truly loved their kid.
Oh my god. My mom thought I died for like 30 seconds and she freaked out. When we were... I don't think I ever told you the story about when we were river rafting, but my like canoe frickin'... Or not a canoe. Whatever the smaller one is. I don't care.
Raft?
Yeah, raft. That would make sense, wouldn't it? No, we were on it and it tipped over... And I put my head in the seat, so I had an air pocket to breathe while I was underwater. but no one knew that. So I heard my mom freaking the hell out. And then they went to my thing, and that was a shit. They went to my raft, and they flipped it over, and I wasn't there, and I popped up like a few feet away, and I was like, guys. I was such a little shit. I still am, to an extent, but that was inexcusable.
See, my bad experiences with the waters. I've never flipped. You ever flipped out of a boat next to rocks, like giant rocks?
It was. We were going down a waterfall adjacent, and there was rocks everywhere. I still have a cut, I think, on my foot from jagged rocks.
See, there's that, and then when I was at the Wisconsin Dells, my dad and me went on a raft. I slipped. And hit my head and felt every little seam of the tube.
Yes.
Smack my head all the way down. Then went flying forward. Went underwater. Smacked the bottom like that. And then bounced back up. And was like, what?
I had the back of my head on a water slide when we were celebrating my 21st.
That sucks. I also was in the wave pool at the Wisconsin Dells. My dad took me to the 6 foot end when I was like 7.
Me and my brother talked about this. And it still makes me cry laughing. Who the hell is the wave pool for? Who is it for?
Anybody who just wants to be lazy.
No, but I see people in there all the time. They're not being lazy. They have to leap in the air, Noah, whenever the wave is coming. Otherwise, they will drown and die. Who the hell is it for? Why?
They enjoy loving the waves or being on a raft.
I think one of the funniest moments of my life, though, came from just watching a wave pool, because I saw a guy try to hit on girls, wasn't paying attention, and he just kept getting hit by waves. He was like, hey, so you guys are...
See, mine was when I was like 6 or 7, the wave came, smacked the raft super hard, and I went up into the air. Remember, because I went high up into the air.
Yeah.
Then fell underwater, and then just started sinking.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And then I remember, because I've almost drowned 3 times. So each and every time that I've been idled underwater, I've just sat there and time has slowed for me, and I've just been looking around like, oh,
this is it.
Well, literally, my mind process is, oh. Well, and the next 2 times that it happened, I literally had the same reaction of, I'm here again.
Yeah.
And it was like watching a show like a Twilight Zone, like, oh, fuck, I'm here again.
Anyway.
But, no, I just remember seeing my dad diving in different parts, because the lifeguards didn't see me go under either.
Yeah.
So I just see my dad, like, all the way at the other side of, like, the pool, partially, just dipping underwater trying to find me, and I'm sinking to the bottom, and I'm like...
See, I never had the problem with sinking, because, like, I'm naturally buoyant, so I just float.
African Americans, though, our bone density is much bigger.
Okay.
Which is why you don't see a lot of black swimmers, because literally most of us, if we sat in the water, we'd bob for a couple seconds and then just go boop, and sink. So I was always a solid kid too. So I was literally just sitting there like, huh, well,
this is what death is.
This is nice. My dad's over there. Nobody saw me go under, and I'm about to sink to the bottom of a 6 foot wave pool.
Huh.
And very small, I'm a child, and I have, like, no lung capacity. So, this is nice.
I'm glad he found you, though.
Yeah, and then my cousin was supposed to be watching me at a lake, because we had a friend who had, like, this small little pond.
Yeah.
Turns out, it really wasn't 5 feet.
No.
It was, like, 13.
Jesus.
So,
how do you mix up 5 and 13?
I went down, 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 and then I sat there, and I was like... I watched a little fish.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when time slowed for me, because I kept looking at the fish, and it just swam past my face, and I was like, there's daylight, and I'm pretty sure I'm close to the bottom. And then I started swimming up, and I kept trying to swim, and I'm like, there's just more and more water each and every time I go. And then I made up, and I was like, dude, where were you?
Exactly.
And he's like, oh, I got distracted. I'm like...
That's not an excuse. You got distracted.
I fell 13 feet, what I assume was 13 feet, because I didn't even touch the bottom.
Yeah.
And I was like, and you got distracted.
Like, are you serious? So, I almost died.
I'm not scared of swimming. I prefer to swim in pools, but...
Right.
Every time I go underwater and I sink, I have that same time slow of, why am I here again?
Yeah. Why does this keep happening to me? But, yes. So, she ends up... What is it? Yeah, meets Joan. Doesn't end up going to therapy, but
it talks to her more about her grandson and kind of...
Yeah, she's kind of communicating with her, and then we get a lot of confrontational scenes with her and her son yelling at each other because they both blame each other for it on a level as well, and blame themselves on a level.
That was dinner, right?
Yeah, that was when they were having dinner.
Yeah, so, well, because Steve is trying to ease the pain of having to deal with it because he's like...
Yeah. Oh, I love him in this scene because he's like... Well, because the other fucked thing is she starts... her way of coping with it, I guess, is she makes a quote-unquote neutral view of the accident with her daughter's head and everything. And she's like...
Before dinner.
Exactly. And he's like, are you aware of what that will do to our son's psyche if he freaking sees that in here? Like...
Yeah. Which... To clarify, too, because I don't think we mentioned it, she makes little miniatures. So
I mentioned that at the beginning.
Oh, we did? Mm-hmm. So I guess you could kind of assume she's a realtor. It's not really explicitly stated. I would assume that she's a realtor or...
I think it's just a hobby. I think it's just a hobby,
Is it?
Personally.
I mean, I guess it could be.
In any case, they end up having an argument and, like, just cursing at each other. But my favorite bit is when he's, like, saying, oh, there's food. He's like... dinner's on the table. And she goes, okay, I'll make dinner in a second. And he goes, I already made it. It's on the table. And just like, okay. Like, oh.
Well, I mean, I understood because he was just kind of
no, I did too.
Sick of her shit.
I would be too. Like, it's awful.
And the thing is, I didn't feel bad for her because I completely blamed her. I was like, here's the thing. It's your fault she's dead. Because your son didn't want to bring her in the first place. Exactly. Charlie was begging you not to go, and you basically just shoved her and said, I don't give a shit
you're going.
What you want.
Yeah.
Into which the result of that was...
She died.
She died. And it's all because also you didn't supply her with...
with a thing EpiPen. That she should have.
Yeah. I mean, she was just a child. And I've never understood that too. Mm-hmm. Why people are like, yeah, you should bring your siblings to a party. No.
Why?
Especially
have your brother hang out with you and your friends. Why? I'm not gonna know how to talk to these people.
Yeah, there is no excuse. Bringing a small child to a high school party, that's just asking.
That's just weird. Yeah, that's just asking for something bad to happen.
That's asking for something bad to happen. That's also asking for something inappropriate to happen.
You can't tell me she didn't know that it was a high school party. He said it's a thing for people from school with barbecue, and I'm like, it's a party. Say it's a party, dude. It's a party.
Oh, the party thing reminded me. I'm sorry, that gave me a flashback to the one scene I've seen of Beetlejuice. Learn to throw your voice, fill your friends, fun at parties.
Fun at parties, yes.
It's the emphasis on that P. Fun at parties.
Who doesn't love Beetlejuice?
I have to see that movie, but I have seen that clip, and I do love it.
It's great. Anyways, no, they like swear at each other, yell at each other. And then, I think it's a little later that we get this scene where Joan talks about how she went to, like, a spiritualist or a psychic or something like that, right?
Yeah, so what she did is she found this group who had basically been able to commune with the dead.
They held a conference.
And they held a conference that taught it. Now, anybody who knows this knows that this is very cultish and that there is always a price to be paid.
Yeah. When you mess with the non-living,
I don't care if for the people who are like, well, I've done it all my life.
That's neat.
I don't give a shit. I don't. You don't know what you're messing with, and you should really stop.
Please. Like for the safety of you and others, please stop.
Yeah, so, I mean, that was a big thing where it was like, okay, and I applaud Annie because through her grief, she was very skeptical about this the entire time.
Yeah.
And she was not on board with it. Her thought process is, this is something I should not be messing with, and I understand if you want to do it.
But just leave me out.
Yeah, and it really gets really shady because, Joan really, and I mean really, pushes for her to come with and explore this with her when
clearly does not want to.
And almost kind of guides Annie to the car and she's like, stop, leave me alone. But I kind of don't know how to say this without making a big scene. And it was
exactly. And we're in a public parking lot, and
yeah. So it was very unnerving. It was very
uncomfortable,
and I really appreciate though that Ari did something
it was
different.
handled in a realistic way, and I really appreciated that too.
Yeah, I love that it was that she was uncomfortable. Not every grieving person is going to fall for that.
No.
You're always going to have at least some sort of...
Well, and then when she invites her to the house and shows her, she audibly, of course, freaks out because she understands, like, you shouldn't be messing with this kind of stuff. Even if it is real or not.
Right. And, yeah, it's just tempting fate. Don't tempt fate when you don't have to.
And, like, it's creepy because a glass cup moves and, like, a chalkboard, like, writes I love you, Grandma. And I'm like, no, I don't know what that is, but that's not your grandson. That's something disguising itself.
Well,
like,
and even if it is...
leave him alone.
It's yeah.
Let him be in heaven, please.
Insidious really touched up on that with the fact that it doesn't matter what you're doing. There's the off chance that you could be opening up to a spirit that's only imitating because you can't see it.
Exactly.
You're going solely off your pure beliefs and your feelings, and that's not always the best way to do things.
No, But so then she kind of like breaks down and she's like, okay, let's try it at the house. And her husband is, of course, immediately skeptical, but Peter, he's trying to like reconnect with his mom. He's like, okay, I'll stay, whatever. So then the glass cup moves and the dad immediately tries to shut it down. He's like, no, we're not doing any of this. This is too much. And then she starts talking, like it seems like she's possessed by Charlie. And they start talking to each other. And he has another nervous breakdown. Peter does. And then... oh yeah, do we get the scene with the light moving around in the high school?
I think so, which was something that was also kind of a callback to earlier that was important when it happened with Charlie.
Yeah, because it happened with Charlie too. But we get some shots with like the lights. It's moving around. It looks really weird. The mom has a night terror where she imagines that she told her son the truth about him being born, which is she tried to abort him every time she could with every different method, and it's just a horrifying scene.
Well, it's a horrible thing to say to your child. It's true. Honestly, I think that, and spoilers for Invincible, I think that cut worse than Omni-Man saying, I can always start again and make another kid.
Yeah. Or when he called his mom a pet.
Yeah, like that was so much worse, because it's like, okay, at least Omni-Man was doing it in the heat of the moment. That was your true feelings.
Yeah, that's how you felt from the get-go. And then Peter has another moment at school where like he raises his hand up and like smashes his face on the desk multiple times. It's very creepy. And then he's like, the dad's like, I need to protect my son. He's like, he's my son too. And he's like, nope, I'm shutting it down. And she goes up into the attic because she's looking more into all this stuff. And she, in her office, and she finds like the photo albums about how like, oh, it's, Joan knew her mom and is in all these photos. And then she finds like a book of the occult about a demon king and all this crazy stuff. And then she tries to burn this book, but when she tries to burn it, her shirt catches fire. So
yeah, as if it's been enchanted to be with whoever it touches.
Exactly. Something like that. So then she ends up going up to the attic, and she smells something horrible. Like, flies just swarm out of it. And she finds her mom's corpse without a head. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, which was definitely... the first time I saw the movie, I don't think I really knew what to make of that.
Sure. I mean, again, his movies are made to be watched a second time, just so you can understand everything.
Well, it's processing, yeah.
Yeah, but then he ends up, like, she shows the father and tells him, this book is connected to me, throw it in the fire to save Peter, but it will kill me when you do it, so I can't do it, I don't have the strength, just do it. And he's about to do it, and then he's like, I'm done. I'm calling the police. I'm taking my son, and we're leaving. And then she grabs the book and throws it in, and then he gets engulfed in flames immediately. And then she, like, makes this weird face. And then Peter, he was sleeping when all this happened, and he's, like, you see his mom floating in the air above him, and I laughed out loud because it looked very silly to me.
It did a little bit.
She looked like she was dog paddling, and I was like, but...
Oh, I am but a pretty bird flying on the wind.
Serious. But then he goes downstairs, and he sees his father's burnt corpse. He's shocked. And then he sees a creepy naked man staring at him, smiling, who was smiling at Charlie at the funeral.
There's a lot of dicks in here.
Yeah.
Ari has a lot of dicks in his movies.
It's true.
Which
it's just a male organ.
Which I applaud him for because... get over it.
Yeah.
Males, guess what? You have a penis. Ooh.
Anyway. And then he gets chased by his mom and hides in the attic from her. And then he sees blood falling from the ceiling. And she's like stabbing herself in the neck repeatedly, one after the other hand. And you warned me, this is pretty disturbing. And I was like, oh, yeah, you were right.
Well, at first I thought she was using a garrote wire or a clay cutter.
No, she had
and then I
sharp
noticed,
objects in either hand.
It was just the way she was doing it. I was like,
it looks like she was like sawing her head off. But yeah, no, she's just stabbing.
At first I was like, did she take a clay cutter and wrap it around her neck and is now proceeding to stretch it out?
No, but she's clearly just using two. But then he sees a bunch of creepy naked people in the attic smiling at him, and he jumps from the attic out the window and then sees the treehouse that has its lights on, and he climbs up it, and there's all these people praying, including both of his parents without a head bowing to a skeleton with a crown on it. And then Joan puts the crown on him and is like, Charlie, and it's like, oh, okay, so her soul is in his body. And she's like, you're so-and-so, 10th king of the underworld, and they're like, hail, 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 and that's how it ends. I'm sorry if I seemed like I rushed through that, but it's like, it's a lot of stuff that happens very quickly.
And a lot of nudity.
Exactly. And we noticed throughout the movie, I don't know if this was something you picked up on your second viewing, but I noticed that a lot of the times he looks out the window and he sees that the treehouse, the lights are on. And we do see a shot once that his mom was sleeping in the treehouse as a way to cope with losing Charlie. But I'm wondering...
why the red light was on?
Well, it's the red light, but it's also... No, I know it's from the heater. But I'm wondering... do you think it's possible she slept in there, like, just a few times, but some of the times we were seeing it was the cult in there?
Possibly. I mean, they kind of popped up all over.
Yeah.
Because I don't think
they were yelling at him from the street and, like...
I mean, that was the whole point, I think, of having... Of really having the grandma move in the first place was because she was going to be there to...
watch over Charlie and make sure she was ready.
Right. Which I kind of wish they would dive into what the grandma was doing. So, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing something or...
a prequel type situation?
Yeah, because I think this is one of those that you actually could play it safe and it would be an interesting concept.
I'd be open to a prequel movie, or, you know me, and I know you hate this personally, but I'd be open to, like, a prequel comic series or something like that for origin stuff.
I don't
know you
do
prefer
those
film.
ones when it comes to...
movies?
When it comes to horror films,
Okay.
unless it involves a really big lore, comics don't really work.
Sure.
I mean, Jeepers Creepers has theirs.
Yeah.
About the Creeper. Hellraiser, I think, has a couple.
Chucky.
And Chucky has a couple as well.
And Texas Chainsaw, too.
Which that I could have done without. And I believe Jason might have had one.
I think so. And Fred. I think it's safe to say a lot
Freddy
of characters.
only had one because they did a series, but
The
that
TV show.
one kind of got lost. So, I mean, it really only works when you really have kind of a icon horror antagonist. Otherwise, it's I would say be more better as a book.
Yeah.
I would much prefer stuff like this as a book opposed to
a comic.
A comic.
Because your imagination is more powerful than a picture.
Yes, and And the reason that I have an issue with some of them is just because there's a certain shooting style and that's what made Hereditary so horrifying. It's because Robert Eggers and Ari Alster, they have a very similar, and that could just be it's A24, very similar yet different visual style. They're very similar because they work very well with horror.
Right.
And they're color correcting for them, and the way that they've shaded and the way they use lighting for each and every one of their scenes is a very unique. And it's something that I don't think has really been done since paranormal movies.
No, and I'm glad they're bringing it back.
The Conjuring does.
Conjuring kind of is more... I feel like focusing of it more is like if you gave a horror movie an action movie budget. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I lost a lot of respect for The Conjuring after just watching a little bit of The Devil Made Me Do It because...
Oh, yeah.
It was nothing but jump scares. It was so predictable, and I wanted it to be so... Because they booted it up like it was going to be so nice, like something like Hereditary, where it was going to actually be suspense.
It's weird because the Conjuring movies aren't usually known for jump scares. They're usually... more suspense stuff.
Except for... Well, yeah, the main Conjuring
The main Conjuring movies, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, like...
Because I was going to say, Annabelle did the jump scares really well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they did it well. That's the difference.
Creation, oh my god, some of the jump scares... Because they would trick you.
Yeah.
And that was the best part. That was atmospherical. That is what Hereditary did. I think there was maybe, like, one jump scare. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even really intended to be a jump scare throughout this entire movie.
Yeah. It's more tension.
And it was great. That is what makes a great horror film. People say that there's no good horror films left. That's actually why my dad stopped watching horror films. Yeah. And he loved Hereditary and he loved Midsommar because they did something different. Exactly. I think I'm going to have him watch The Witch and The Lighthouse too, and I want to watch them with him because those are also very good ones. So, there's a reason that we did all these movies.
And we're doing Midsommar next week, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Which I think I told you guys at the beginning too.
No, you said that we both said the guy made the same guy made both of those movies. We didn't directly address, I don't think. But yes, we're doing Midsommar next week.
There's a reason we chose to do these movies, and while The Lodge was not as good, and you can listen to our review to it.
It's all tension filled.
It's tension, and it's
unsettling environments, and it's creepy subject matter, and it's great.
It does it so well, and it deserves respect for that. I would say that's more of a horror film than any of these horror films that come out today.
Exactly.
It's so sad that people think that just throwing a bunch of jump scares, and I in part really blame Hollywood a lot.
Yeah.
Because they think, oh, let's throw a jump scare. I'm sorry, not everything is Five Nights at Freddy's, and the reason Five Nights at Freddy's works is because you're stationary and you have control. Mm-hmm. That is why people who are mad and call it a jump scare simulator say what you want, but you were also terrified by it.
Exactly. But anyways, that's our thought on Hereditary. Let us know what you guys thought if you're watching on YouTube in the comments. Like, subscribe, all the good stuff. We really appreciate it. It does help us out a lot. And if you're listening on Spotify, thanks for listening there too.
Feel free to give your feedback. It's always kind of fun to see where people come from. I mean, everybody has their different opinions, and we can all agree to disagree on stuff. But I like seeing a lot of people's input on different movies, and also recommendations, because there's so many indie films that even, like, you know, if you're on groups on Facebook or on Instagram, pages you can follow, there's so many different movies, both old and new, that I didn't even know about that were horror in action. So feel free to drop those down below, because those are always fun to see as well.
Yeah. But thank you all for listening. We will see you next week for our last review of the month of June for Midsommar. And then in July, we're switching off to a new theme, which we will reveal then. But without further ado, he's been Noah Sweeta.
He's been Nathaniel Shoemaker.
This has been Film Nerds Hour. Thank you,
So long,
guys.
everyone.